Erev Tov, everyone, and welcome to the House of Seven Beggars. It is Monday, Tu B'Shvat, Tu B'Shvat, which is over now, but it is Monday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the House of Seven Beggars, therefore it must be Zeyde Story Corner. That's right, Zeyde Story Corner. We are back. Yes, we are back. Yeah, we finally got rid of whatever it was that's been plaguing everyone, and we are back to our broadcasting and telling stories. Yeah, back to telling stories. So let's see who we have in the chat room. We have Mary. We have Veronica, Donald, Richard, Shlomo, Kelsey Lynn, Guy, and probably some watching in the background. Yeah, there's some watching in the background. So, as always, somebody there watching in the background. They just don't want to be in the chat room for some reason. But, yeah, so it's good to be back. And we should probably get on with the stories. Yes, we should. Oh, okay. So let me get you onto your camera here. There I am. Okay, I am back. And we are going to continue on with our stories from the Yiddish folk tales from Yivo. So let's see, the last time we were here together, let's see if we can adjust that camera a little bit. Maybe not so hard. Yeah, maybe. Okay. So we are going to continue on. This is the 18th story. It's high. So it is 18, and the story is called Stones and Bones Rattled in My Belly. So we begin. Once upon a time. Boy, we never get away from that, do we? No. Yeah, they all seem to start about once upon a time. Yeah, okay, so once upon a time, there was a rabbi. And? Well, okay, there's always a rabbi. Yes, there's always a rabbi. Yeah, okay, so what about the rabbi? Okay, well, anyway, there was a rabbi and his wife. And they had many children. One day, the rabbi went to synagogue. It's not that unusual. Most rabbis do that. And his wife went to do some work in the mill. A bear came along and broke down the door of their house and ate up all the little children. Can you imagine such a thing? When the rabbi came home from the synagogue and his wife came home from the mill, they looked everywhere, but they could not find the children. Children, they called. Children, where are you? And the children called back. We are here, inside the bear. He came to the house and broke the door. Then he ate us up. So the parents called, Bear, come, let us pick your lice. No, said the bear, I won't. Come, said the parents. We'll give you a bowl of cereal with butter. Oh, that sounds good. But again, the bear said, I won't. And we seem to have frozen the picture. Okay. He seems to happen a lot. Yeah, I know, I know. We switch plugs and stuff like that, and it just keeps doing that. Let's see if we can get you back onto your camera here. Let's see if it's going to behave now. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we are moving again. Okay, so the children call. Okay, so he broke down the bear and he ate us up, or broke down the door. Then he ate us up. So the parents called. Oh, yeah, we already did the pick the lice, okay, and then we did the bowl of the cereal and the butter. But again, the bear said, I won't. Come, said the parents, we'll give you groats with butter. But again, the bear said, I won't. Come, said the parents, we'll give you some sweets. But still the bear said, I won't. Come, said the parents, we'll give you some meat. For meat, said the bear, I'll come. And he ate, and the parents gave him as much meat as he could eat, and he ate and ate until he fell asleep. Then they took a huge knife and cut his belly open and took all their children out. The rabbi and his wife washed and scrubbed each of the children. Then they put one of them on top of the table, one under the table, one in the bed, one under the bed, one on the clay oven, and one beside the clay oven. They fed them all boiled groats and milk. Then the rabbi and his wife put stones and bones inside the bear's belly and sewed him up. It's surprising. I would have thought that the bear would have woke up, but, I wasn't there. So, when they were done, they woke the bear. Like the knife wouldn't have been enough. Anyway, they woke the bear, who grabbed at his belly, but there were no children there. Then he went off singing, Tra-la, tra-la, tra-lee. I've got bones and big heavy stones rattling in my belly. Okay. And again with the camera. Okay, let's see if we can fix this. Let's come back here for a second. Okay, let's see. We'll try a different plug. Whatever it takes. Okay. Okay, let's see if it's going to behave now. Okay, so now we have the bear with the stones and bones in his belly. Okay. Let us move on to the next one. Sorekane at the lip of the church Lord. Okay, so once upon a time, there was a father and mother who went off to market, leaving their daughter Sorekane alone in the house. Sorekane swept the floor. Then a raven flew down and caught her up in his bill. Boy, she must have been kind of small, huh? And carried her to the tip of the church tower. When her father and mother came home and saw her at the tip of the church tower, they said, Sore, dear, come down from the tower. But she replied, No, father, no. You don't know what I want. The maidens are all married, and I'm still all alone." Then her mother called up to her, sorry dear, come down from the tower." But she replied, "No, mother, no. The maidens are all married, and I'm still all alone." Her brother called up to her, sorry dear, come down from the tower." But she replied, "No, brother, no. The maidens are all married, and I'm still all alone." Then her sister called up to her, sorry dear, come down from the tower." But she replied, "No, sister, no. The maidens are all married, and I'm still all alone." When night fell, she climbed down from the tip of the church tower and went slowly to her house. She stood outside her father's window and said, "Father, open up." "No," he said, "you would not come down from the tower when I asked you." Then she went to her mother's window, but she also said no. Then to her brothers, again, no. So she went to her sister's window, and her sister opened the door and let her in and sat her down on the oven and fed her boiled groats and milk. Tzorei ate it and went to sleep at once. I guess you had to be there. I guess so. Okay. This next story is called Little Bean. This is a good one. Okay. Now, you can probably imagine how it starts out, right? Once upon a time, there was a couple who did not have children. They often went to the cemetery where they prayed to have a child. One day, as they were praying, an angel flew down from heaven and told them, "God has heard your prayers. Which would you prefer? To have a son who will be no bigger than a bean, or a daughter who, when she is 13, will abandon Judaism for another faith?" "Better," they said, "to have a son no bigger than a bean." A year went by, and they had a son who was indeed no bigger than a bean. And he never grew any bigger, which is why they called him Little Bean. One day, when the mother was preparing a meal, she poured what she was cooking into an earthen pot and gave it to Little Bean to take to his father in the marketplace. Little Bean, delighted with the task, put the pot on his head and ran off to his father. He ran and he ran and he ran until he met an old beggar. The beggar said, "It's 3 days since any food has passed my lips." Little Bean pitied him and gave him all of his father's meal. The beggar thanked him warmly. "God bless your little bones. May the light of happiness and good fortune shine for you." Oh, what a nice blessing. Yeah, it is a nice blessing. That's wonderful. When the beggar was done eating, Little Bean put the empty pot on his head and started off at a run. He ran and he ran and he ran until he met a gang of thieves. Oh my goodness. Where are you off to so fast? They said. I'm running to tell my father that I've given his supper to a beggar, he said. Well, if you're so nice, we'll take you into our gang and you can come stealing with us. Little Bean wanted to say, stealing is forbidden, but he was afraid they would kill him. So he said, good, I'll join you. They went on together until they came to a locked stable. And as the thieves were looking the place over, Little Bean leapt up into the keyhole and disappeared. The thieves wondered, where did that little fellow get to? He was just here a minute ago. They searched everywhere, but they could not find him. In the end, they left. Little Bean looked around and hid in a tub of chopped beets. And so the cow ate him up with the beets. How terrible for him. When Little Bean saw how dark it was in the cow's belly and found that there was no way to get out, he was very angry. The devil take you, he shouted at the cow. I hope the cholera gets you. Oh, such a terrible curse. In the morning, a servant who was milking the cow heard someone shouting, the devil take you. I hope the cholera gets you. So frightened she was, more dead than alive. She ran out of the stable. Mistress, she cried, the cow is cursed. Don't be a fool, said her mistress. I've never heard of a cursing cow. She went to the stable to milk the cow herself. But as she was milking, she heard someone cry, the devil take you. I hope the cholera gets you. More dead than alive, the woman ran to the rabbi and told him the whole story. The rabbi said, kill the cow and throw the innards into the street. So, the next morning, the shechet, the butcher, came and killed the cow. Just as he was cutting up the cow's stomach to take out the innards, he heard a voice that cried, don't cut from the belly, cut from the side. Then the shechet was too frightened, and he began to cut from the side. Little by little, he drew out the innards, which he threw into the street. A hungry beggar passing by saw the fresh innards and thought, God has sent me a real gift. I'll take these home and cook a fine meal. So, this must be the 5-second rule, right? Only on the ground for 5 seconds you can still take it. It's still fine, right? Okay. So he put them into his sack, slung the sack over his shoulder, and went happily on his way. He walked, and he walked, and he walked, Then suddenly he felt something stabbing his shoulder. Since he couldn't imagine what it was, he ignored it and continued on. But as he walked, something stabbed his shoulder again. I wonder what that can be, he thought. I don't have any pins in my sack. Nothing there but soft innards. Then what is stabbing me? Again he tried to ignore it, but the farther he went, the sharper the stabs, until he couldn't stand them. He stopped and said to himself, I shall throw the innards away, but that would be sinful, and I'd have nothing to eat. But if I keep carrying them, who knows what will happen to my shoulder? It is a bad business. Then he heard someone call, Throw them away! Throw them away! Frightened, he threw the innards into the street. As he stood looking, he saw a tiny boy, no larger than a bean, creep out of them. The beggar recognized Little Bean at once. You're the boy who gave me his father's supper to eat, he said. That's me, said Little Bean. Then what were you doing in there? Asked the beggar. And Little Bean told him this whole story. Tis, 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 said the beggar. What strange things can happen in this world. I was afraid you would eat me for supper, Little Bean said. Well, do you want to go home? Asked the beggar. Yes, Little Bean said. I want to go home. So they went to Little Bean's house. And when his father and mother saw him, they cried, Little Bean, where were you? And Little Bean told them the whole story. A rooster and a hen, and now my story is begun. A cat in a mouse, and now my story is done. Okay. So now we come to the next story. It is called A Topsy-Turvy Tale. We've had a few of them already. Okay, so can you guess what it's going to say at the beginning? Yep. Once upon a time, 4 live dead people were out walking. One of them was blind, the other was mute, the third was lame, and the fourth was naked. The blind man saw a tree loaded with apples. So he said to the mute, Tell the lame fellow to climb up into the tree and throw us down some apples. So the lame man climbed up into the tree and threw down an apron full of apples for the naked man. That done, the blind man went on. Then seeing what he saw, he stopped. It was a crowded marketplace, so crowded that one wagon was a mile away from another. He went up to a peasant woman and said, I want to buy a goose. She said, that will be 20 kopecks for the turkey. So he bought the duck. When he saw a woman who was selling fish, a fish that weighed some 20 pounds, but when he picked it up, nothing was there. So he took it home and said to his wife, Cook this fish. All right, she said, I'll cook the fish if you'll bring me a pot the size of 3 thimbles, into which I can put 3 yards of flour. So he bought her a pot the size of 3 thimbles, which she could hold 3 yards of flour, and she cooked the fish. Now guess what the sly young rascal did? He took the head of the fish for himself and gave the tail to his wife. The tail is the end, and an end is a finish. And this is the finish of my tale. That was silly. But silly ones are very, very good. Okay. This one is called Clever Kashinkel and Foolish Beshinkel. Okay. There was a woman. Wow, look at that. There is a story that didn't start with once upon a time. Let's mark that one so we don't forget it. Okay. There was a woman who had 2 daughters. One was clever and the other foolish. The clever one was called Kashinkel, and the foolish one was Bashinkel. The mother preferred the clever daughter to the foolish one, and finally drove the foolish one from the house. The foolish daughter walked and walked and walked until she came to a little pear tree. The pear tree said, "Why are you crying?" Bashinkel said, "Because my mother drove me away from home." The pear tree said, "Shake my branches, then you'll have a measure of pears, and I'll have a measure of pears." So she did, and took away her measure of pears. She walked on, still crying and crying, until she saw a little cow. The little cow said, "Why are you crying?" "Because my mother drove me away from home," said Bashinkel. The little cow said, "Well, milk me. Then you'll have a quart of milk, and I'll have a quart." So she did, and went on her way, crying and crying, until she saw a kneading trough filled with flour. "Why are you crying?" asked the kneading trough. You notice she doesn't seem to be at all surprised that a pear tree and a cow and a kneading bowl here are actually talking to her. Oh well. "Why are you crying?" asked the kneading trough. "Because my mother drove me away from home," replied Bashinkel. The kneading trough said, "Take my flour, knead it, and bake it. That way you'll have a loaf of bread, and I'll have a loaf of bread." So she did. And now she had bread and milk and pears, all of which she ate. Then she lay down to sleep. When she awoke the next morning, she walked on, still crying, till she came to a little hut, where she found an old granny. And the little Bobetska said to her, "Why are you crying, girl?" "Because my mother drove me away from home," said Bashinkel. "Why did she do that?" asked the grandmother. "Because she says I'm foolish, and I have a sister who's clever, My mother loves her and hates me. That's why she drove me away from home." "In that case," said the granny, "just wait a minute. I'll fix things so your mother will care for you." The old woman spread out a sheet and threw all sorts of good things on it: candies and cookies, gold and silver. Then she tied the sheet up and said, "Take that home to your mother." But she carried the good things home to her mother, stood in the front of the house and cried, "Mother, mother, open the door." "The plague take you," came the reply. "Be off." Bashika, seeing that her mother would not open the door, called, "Mother, I've brought you all sorts of good things." When her mother heard that Bashika had brought all sorts of good things, what do you think? Yep, she opened the door at once and let her in. And then she untied the sheet. Her eyes were dazzled by the brightness of the gold and the silver and everything else. "Ah, ah, what wonderful things," she said. "Where did you get them?" Vishinga told her about the old granny who lived in the little hut. "Ah," thought her mother, "if Vishinga, who is a fool, could bring such wonderful things, just think what my clever Kashinka will bring." And she drove her clever daughter from the house so that she too would come home bearing all sorts of good things. And right there is where we are going to pause. And we are going to take our little break. And then we will come back and we will find out what happens to the smart girl. Okay, so everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back, just as we promised. Okay, let us find out what becomes of Kalinka. No, wait a minute, that's Kashinka. I don't know, what am I thinking of? I think you're thinking of a song. Oh yeah, that's right. Kalinka, Kalinka, Kalinka Maya. Okay, well, let's get back to the story. Okay, we go. So Kashinka walked and walked until she came to the little hut. She went in crying. But the old babushka sitting there asked, "Why are you crying?" Kashinka said, "Because my mother has driven me out of the house so that I too can bring back all sorts of good things." "Ah," said the old woman, "she drove you from the house so you can bring her good things. She likes good things, does she? Well then," she said, "I'll send her good things." With that, she spread out a sheet on the floor, and oh, the good things she threw in it. Alas and alack, snakes and frogs and mice and cats and more. Then she tied them up and gave the bundle to Kashinka, saying, "Here, take these good things home to your mother." And that's what Kashinka did. When she got home, she called, "Mother, let me in." Her mother eagerly ran to the door, and Kashinka came in. No sooner had she set her bundle down, the snakes and the frogs and the mice and the cats began to leap out into her mother's face. Her mother screamed, "Ah, the devil take you! What have you brought me? Oh Lord, what will I do? What will I do? Help, people, save me, I feel sick." A crowd came running to the house and stood around staring at her. See, that's my staring. Okay. Finally, the mother gave Kashinka a good beating and drove her away from the home. Foolish Kashinka Now was the clever one, while clever Kashinka went away like a fool and disappeared. What parents were rough back then. I don't remember my parents being like that. No, I don't think many parents are like that, but there's lessons in there to be learned. Okay, so this one is called The Granny Bear. Once upon a here we go again, right back to the other one. Okay, once upon a time, there was a granny bear whose children, all 10 of them, oh good, they had enough for a minion. All 10 of them loved to eat farfel with beans. One day, the granny bear cooked up a pot of farfel with beans, went off to the forest to gather wood. As soon as she was gone, her children ate the farfel and beans in the pot. And when they were done, they were afraid that the granny bear would spank them for it. This is what they did. They took a towel and stuck it full of needles, because they knew that when the granny bear came home, the first thing she always did was to wash and dry her hands. Then the children all hid. One hid in the closet, while another crawled under the closet. One climbed on top of the clock, while another crawled under the clock. One got into a chest, while another crawled on top of the chest. One got into a cubby hole, while another crawled under the cubby hole. When the granny bear came home from the forest, she knocked at the door, but no one answered. "Children, children," she called, "open the door." But the door stayed shut. Again she cried, "Children, children, open the door. I'll give you some piping hot farfel and beans." When the children heard the word farfel and beans, they came out of hiding and opened the door for the granny bear. Granny bear," they said, "wash and dry your hands." And the granny bear did. She washed up, and when she wiped her hands on the towel, they got so badly stuck by the pins that she couldn't spank the children. What do you think of that, huh? Okay, so this next one is called Moshele and Shindele. Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter who had a wife and 2 small children, a boy and a girl. The boy was called Moshele, and the girl Shindele. The woodcutter's wife died, and he married a second wife, who was a very wicked woman and cruel stepmother to the children. One day, the woodcutter left the house to chop wood in the forest, which is a good place to go chop wood. He's always in the forest, right? Okay, and the stepmother got ready to go to market to do the Shabbos shopping. Before she left, she gave the children some food, put the mosheles in a pot and shendeles on a plate. She said, "Moshele, if you break the pot, I'll chop off your head. So you'd better not. She told Shindele, 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 just you wait. I'll chop off your legs if you break this plate. Well, it's kind of a cruel poetry, huh? Then she slammed the door and went to market. The children were afraid to eat lest they break something. But a rooster suddenly flew up on the table and knocked over the pot. It fell to the ground and broke into tiny pieces. Moshe, seeing them, was terrified and began to cry. Shindele comforted him, saying, Hush, Moshe, don't cry. And she took the shards of the pot and pushed them into a corner of the room. When the stepmother came home, she couldn't find the pot. Where is the pot? She asked Moshe. The rooster broke it, he said. The stepmother was very angry, and she pretended that nothing was the matter. Later she said to Moshe, Come with me, and I'll wash your hair. So Moshe went with her. She took him to another room and cut off his head, after which she cooked it for supper. Can you believe such a thing? When the woodcutter came back from the forest, he said, Where is Moshe? I don't know, said the stepmother. When they sat down at the table and ate the soup and the meat, Shindele, unaware of what she was eating, sucked the marrow from the bones and threw them out the window. A little mound of earth covered the bones, and when the glad summer came again, a new Moshe grew up out of it. Moshe stood on his little mound until, seeing a tailor pass by, he called, Tailor, tailor, make me a pair of trousers, and I'll sing you a song. Murdered by my mother, eaten by my father, and Shindele, when they were done, sucked the marrow from my bones and threw them out the window. What's such a song, huh? The tailor, hearing the song, pitied him and made him a pair of trousers. Moshe put them on. And then a shoemaker went by. Moshe called, Shoemaker, shoemaker, make me a pair of boots, and I'll sing you a song. Murdered by my mother, eaten by my father, and Shindele, when they were done, sucked the marrow from my bones and threw them out the window. The shoemaker, hearing the song, pitied him and made him a pair of boots. Moshe put them on. And then a hat maker went by. Well, they live on a busy street, don't they? Moshe called, hat maker, make me a hat and I'll sing you a song. Murdered by my mother, eaten by my father, and Shindele, when they were done, sucked the marrow from my bones and threw them out the window. The mat maker, hearing the song, pitied him and made him a hat. And Moshe put it on and ran off to school. One log there, one log gone. As for my tale is done. Okay. I think we have time for one more. Okay. This one is called Next Times. That's what I'll say. Boy, how many times do we all say that ourselves, huh? Okay, can you guess how this one starts? You got it. Once upon a time, there was a king who had two sons, one of whom was, what do you think? A fool, while the other one was, what do you think? Was clever. One day the king called his sons to him and said, "It's time that you both learn some profession or skill. You can't spend your lives doing nothing. So now, each of you tell me what you would like to learn." The clever son promptly said, "I want to learn every skill there is." "And you?" said the king to the foolish son. "Well," said the fool, "I want to wash clothes in the river." "Good," said the king. "Washing clothes is also a skill." The king gave each of them money, and the sons went away. The clever one to study, and the foolish one to the river. The fool stood beside the river and washed clothes. He washed and washed and washed. All at once, one of the sacks he was washing floated away and disappeared. Usually that happens in the dryer, but, no dryer here. Okay, so he crossed over to the other bank to go look for it. There he ran about and ran about until he met a postman. "Listen," he said, "have you seen a sack by chance?" The irritated postman, unaware that this was the king's son, slapped his cheek so hard that it swelled up like a round loaf. The boy went crying to the king, "Father, I was washing clothes in the river, and the sack floated away. So I asked the postman if he had seen it, and he made my cheek swell like this." The king thought, "A fool is a source of grief, and yet he must be taught some wisdom." So he said, "My son, if it happens again that you meet a postman, take your hat off and say to him, 'Good morning, Mr. Postman. Have you perhaps seen my sock?'" "Good," said the fool. "Next time, that's what I'll say." So he walked, and he walked, and he walked, until he passed a house where a wedding was taking place. He went inside. There he took off his hat and said to the groom, "Good morning, Mr. Postman. Have you perhaps seen my sock?" The groom and the assembled relatives stared at him as if he were mad. "Postman? Who? Sack? What? Where?" So they grabbed him and they beat him well, after which they threw him out of the house. Away he went crying to the king, "Father, I've been to a wedding where I said, 'Good morning, Mr. Postman. Have you perhaps seen my sock?' And oh, how they beat me up." The king thought, "A fool is a source of grief, and yet he must be taught wisdom." And so he said, "My son, if you're ever at a wedding again, drop a coin on the plate and dance with everyone." "Good," said the fool. "That's what I'll do if it happens again." and he went off once more. He went on and on until he saw a house that was burning, a huge conflagration. He ran into the burning house, threw a coin on a plate, and started to dance. When the firemen saw what he was doing, they burst out laughing and doused him from head to foot with a fire hose. He ran to the king crying, "Father, I saw a house burning," and went in and threw a coin on the plate and began to dance. When the firemen saw me, they doused me with water with their hose. Hearing that, the king grew sad. Now, pay attention. If it happens again, don't be a fool. If you see a fire, grab a bucket of water and put it out. "Good," said the fool. "That's what I'll do." And away he went again. The morning after his beatings, the fool was walking in the street and saw a woman carrying a basket full of steaming hot rolls. Thinking that they were on fire, he grabbed a pail of water and flung it over them. The woman slapped him silly and snatched his hat from his head. Hatless, the fool ran to the king crying, "Father, I saw a woman carrying rolls that were steaming, so I took a bucket of water and poured it over them. Then she slapped me silly and snatched my hat from my head." Now the king grew angry and shouted, "You fool! If you see a poor woman carrying rolls, you buy a roll for a kopeck." "Good," said the fool. "That's what I'll do next time." And he went away. He went on and on until he saw a soldier scratching about in the dirt. So he said to the soldier, "Sell me a kopeck's worth." "With the greatest pleasure in the world. Why, for a kopeck, I'll sell you a whole wagon load." The delighted fool ran home to the king crying, "Oh, father, what a terrific bargain I just made." Then he told his father what the soldier had said. Hearing this, the king was now well and truly angry and drove his son out of the house. And that is the end of our story, and that is the end of our time together for tonight. I want to thank you all for being here. I hope you will return to be with us Wednesday night for the Torah study with Rabbi A and Reb Reuven. And don't forget Shabbat. This is Parsha Yitro, one of my favorites. So until then, everyone, we will see you and we will say Laila Tov.